Oops. Hey, what's going on? Good morning. I just hit live by accident right away, but it's great to meet you.
Nice to meet
uh,
you as well.
Most definitely. So yeah, my name is Dr. Ben Glass. I'm a chiropractor. I'm really just trying to connect with people that are engaged in the profession, that are putting out information to try and help others, to try and make life better for people that are chiropractors that are entering this path or have been on this path or who have never even considered this path. And I'm just really happy to connect with you because I know that you're working on a project, CWC, and I'd love to get into that in a few minutes. But Dr. Lindsay, can we just get started by you introducing yourself and sharing a little bit about your upbringing and what you were up to before you decided to become a chiropractor?
Yeah, of course. So my name is Dr. Lindsay Banks. I am a 2008 graduate of Logan University. And just to tell you a little bit about my background, I grew up in a smaller town. I'm originally from the Midwest, Alton, Illinois. So it is about 20 minutes outside of St. Louis. So I'm now in Houston. So I've been here for 5 years. But I grew up middle class family, two-parent home. We pretty much, my dad was always a proponent of education. So I always knew I was going to go to college, but I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do specifically. But when I first went to college, my goal was, I actually originally wanted to be a veterinarian. Um, when I was younger, my dog died when I was like in middle school, and I wanted to save all dogs after that. So that was my original plan, so much so that I ended up actually going to undergrad, and I have a bachelor's degree in zoology. Um, but I ended up my senior year of undergrad, I ended up getting pregnant with my oldest son. And so I didn't want to go somewhere that was really far away, because if to be a vet, I either had to go to the University of Missouri or U of I, which was all like 3 hours away. So I ended up my senior year, there was this guy that was in my one of my zoology labs, and he was actually saying, well, I'm going to school to be a chiropractor. And so I remember my dad actually used to go see a chiropractor when I was younger. And I didn't go with him, but I just kind of remembered it. So then I started to look into, different health careers. I looked into ophthalmology. And then I ended up doing a little bit more research about chiropractic. And I went to the Slice of Logan, which is like their open house, and I just kind of fell in love with it. But before that, when I graduated, I was actually working at a home health agency, and I was helping these older ladies, because they were kind of sickly and couldn't really, do things on their own. And I remember one of them specifically said something to me. And at this time I was about 22, because I started chiropractic school at 23. And she told me that make sure that you take care of yourself when you're younger, because if you don't, you're going to be like me. And that's why you're here helping me take care of myself. So that was another reason why I wanted to also get into a healthcare field, because I saw how much those individuals needed assistance. And I'm like, well, I don't want to be in this situation. And so that's another reason I've always been big on just like holistic healthcare, taking care of yourself, prevention, and things of that nature. So.
Can you look back on that time in your life, like that crossroads you were at, where you really had to pick a career, pick a field, and like how did you go inward? Like, what are some of the key moments that really helped clarify for you beyond just going to that one event? Because I think that a lot of people choose based on one experience, or
Yeah.
they go to a school and the school does a great job of getting them excited. But I really want for the pre-Chiro students to see the long-term picture through the eyes of somebody who's like been through it all and can look back and be like, okay, like what was it that I thought about or that I experienced or witnessed? And you talked about it right there with the work you were doing with the older lady. But like, what is maybe like a question that you would ask somebody really strongly consider this question if you're thinking of which field you're going to go into, or what were you really, how did chiropractic become that thing that you got excited or aligned with when you went to Logan?
Ooh, that's a good question. One of my main motivating factors, again, was like at that point I had a child. So I went back to my hometown. Again, I was working a job that just, you know, it was basically just kind of killing me slowly at that young of an age. And so I would say, when you are really considering what you want to do, don't necessarily think about how much money you're going to make. Think about like what you really have a passion for and what you really enjoy doing. Because being a chiropractor is not for the faint of heart, like especially when you get into business and you are, running your own practice, be it if that's what you want to do. It does take a lot of work. So I would definitely say don't go into it lightly. Make sure that you ask questions at the school, talk to other people who are currently students, talk to people who are already docs to really find out like if this is something you really want to do. And if you already have, like, you think, okay, I want to be a chiropractor, also kind of look and explore other healthcare careers, and not just looking at the fact that, okay, I want to be a doctor, but also look at, okay, what are the other career paths as a chiropractor? So there's not just practicing, you can be in research, you can be in teaching and education. And so really exploring the different career paths, finding your passion and figuring out what you really enjoy, because whenever you make that big of a decision, because it's a big decision, it's a lot of money, you want to make sure that it's something that you really truly care about, and nothing, you're just not jumping on like a bandwagon or a trend or something like that just because you're like, oh, I want to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So I would definitely say do your research and be passionate about whatever you choose to do.
That's what we're here for. That's the energy we're bringing to the pre-Chiro project, is really trying to help give them structure that they can research so many different aspects of how you can practice, or the types of chiropractors, or some of the motivating factors like you mentioned that most people that decide that they're going to become a chiropractor have. Can you
Mhm.
reflect on what it was like to be a Black woman, and why this project of chiropractic women of color has been developed? Can you just kind of reflect on what it was like to be a Black woman in a predominantly white male profession, maybe now white female also, but just kind of
Yeah.
like looking at it, and also just talking about how things are changing, and how there is more diversity coming into the profession, and we can only work on what we got going on right now. So
Right.
what's exciting about what's happening right now as you see it, and also just reflect back on where it was at and where it's at today?
Yeah, so I'll reflect back on my journey throughout chiropractic school. So when I started in I went to Logan, so we did a trimester. So I started in the summer, and out of a class of, we started off with 75 people. I think it was five of us that were African American, and then by the time we graduated, I think it was two of us that actually graduated. Me and another doctor that actually graduated on time, with our class or what have you. But I just kind of remember throughout school. I remember one time specifically, the I had got what was it, braids in my hair, and like the school photographer had asked me, he was like, "Oh my God, your hair is so cool. Can I take a picture of it?" And I'm like, to me, it was just like really weird, and it made me feel weird and uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Because you're not asking anybody else, to take pictures. But it was a unique experience in the fact that I like, when you're going through school, I don't think we had any faculty that looked like us. I think there was one instructor, I think, that would come in, and she was an adjunct and she taught us nutrition or what have you. But another thing is, I remember like towards the beginning of our schooling, certain individuals, they would share notes and kind of do study groups and things of that nature. We didn't really get any of that because we weren't like part of, I guess, that group or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And so later on, maybe about I would say 4 or 5, that's when we started making connections and, getting some of the notes that the other students had. But by that time, I think it honestly helped me out because I was studying so hard, trying to make sure that I learned the information. So it actually made me do better on boards and things of that nature as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but back then when I graduated, even seeing the doctors that were successful, there wasn't a lot of individuals that looked like me, even, Black, male, or, females or what have you. So sometimes it was a little discouraging because every time you saw somebody doing really good or you went to conferences, you would always see people that didn't look like you. And back then when I graduated in 2008, so there wasn't a large social media presence. And so you didn't see a lot of people that looked like you, and, representation and being encouraged and things of that nature. Fast
Mm-hmm.
forward to now, like, I was in practice for 5 years. And then I ended up getting into higher education when my kids were smaller so I could have more of a stable schedule. And now I'm jumping back into practice. But now it's totally different because, you can go on social media and see all of the, especially Black women that are either in school becoming chiropractors, who are practicing chiropractors. And it's motivating to me when I was first jumping back out there. And so now I feel as though that I have a responsibility to pay it forward and just put myself out there and just, kind of share my journey and encourage, other women who look like me that it is possible for you to be successful, and it is possible, to create the type of practice that you want. And so that's where CWC, Chiropractic Women of Color, came into place. Dr. Rocky actually started it. And it was funny because we're both in Houston, and I already had something like in my mind that I wanted to do. But then when I saw that she was doing it, I was like, you know what? Instead of starting something that's like we're in the same city and trying to start something and divide, why not reach out to her and see if she needs help? And so I just sent her a DM on Instagram, like, hey, I love what you're doing. Do you want some help? And she was like, oh, yes, I do. So from there, we kind of just talked about the goal with it is to just interview different women of color, not just Black women, but all women of color, and just kind of share our journeys through chiropractic school, share our experiences, give tips to, current students or graduates, and then show all of our different types of practice styles. Because a lot of times when you have like, I guess, practice management groups or mentoring groups, sometimes they really kind of teach some of the same stuff, or it may not be a good fit for you. You know what I mean? Especially as women, and you have a child, you think about when you have a kid, everything changes, you know what I mean? Your schedule, and, maybe you don't want to see 400 or 500 people a week. Maybe you want a small volume practice, but you can still be profitable and have a very successful business. And just letting them know that success is a relative term. Like, what success is to one person, that doesn't necessarily mean that's the same thing for you. So define your definition of success and then go from there. And so really it's just all about, motivating, sharing our experiences, and just creating unity between us so we can create opportunities for ourselves. Like they say, we're building our own table at this point.
Most definitely. Yeah, no, it's super important to have representation, equal representation. As a chiropractor, I look back on my time growing up, and I was into everything health related. I was a college athlete. I was into all these things, exercise science, pre-allied health professions, and chiropractic wasn't represented. So that's what this project is really about, is representation. And I think that what you're doing with the CWC project is really what I would love to see more of, not only within chiropractic, but also within the context of like high schools and colleges, and it not just be during a career fair, but it also be like ongoing. Like there's people that look like me, talk like me, that also are doctors, that are also very fulfilled and happy in their life. And so I hear you. It's a great project. I'm happy to see it happen. I think it was started right around the time that I started this project. In an outward sense, we've been working inwardly on this for obviously years and years, but yeah, it's what would it look like to have more women of color that are chiropractors be in communities that really have low access or don't really know what true health is really all about? What do you think would shift in regards to just the community? How would that help the community? Just in reflection, I'm sure you've reflected on this a lot.
I think it would definitely, it would be a huge advantage to the community. Reason being is a lot of the chronic conditions that affect the African American community, a lot of them have a lot to do with lifestyle habits. And it's not that, they give all these statistics about how, unhealthy African Americans are, but it's not necessarily that we don't want to be healthy. It's all about having access. It's about tools, about resources. And so as chiropractors, if we go back into our own communities and really provide that information, provide access to a doctor that you can trust, that looks like you, because there is a lot of mistrust in the healthcare community, due to past things that went on. So somebody that looks like you're going to be a little bit more comfortable listening to what they're saying, or comfortable sharing certain things. And then they're going to be more open to actually listening to you and taking what your ailments or whatever seriously. And not only that, just educating them on simple things that they can do in everyday life to prevent chronic diseases. And that's where my practice is Healthy Motos 365, because I incorporate not only chiropractic, but I also do a healthy lifestyle coaching. I have yoga classes at my practice, workshops and seminars, because the goal is to give back to the community and really educate and give them resources so then they can take that information back to their household and make a difference. And really, I target women specifically because a lot of times women are the ones that kind of, in most families, make some of the healthcare decisions. They're the ones that are encouraging their husbands, hey, you need to go to the doctor. A lot of times they do a lot of the grocery shopping and things of that nature. And so once you get to them, and really educate them about the importance, then it kind of just spreads, throughout the rest of the family. And really, again, if you can reach kids as well, because if you reach kids before they get to adults and now you're kind of stuck in your habits, then it's easier for them to transition and change as well. So I think like I said, I think us going back into our communities would definitely help with some of the chronic diseases that, we're susceptible to, not just because of our genetics, but I think it has to do with our lifestyle habits. And then there's all these other factors, it's not just that, you think about socioeconomic factors, about, your environment as well. If you're living in an area where it may not necessarily be safe for you to go out and go for a jog and people are like, why are you running? Or there's no, grocery stores that have fresh fruits and vegetables. There's only like a corner store or something like that. So those are other issues, whole nother, area that we can go into. But anyway, just simply giving the education of things that they can do in their communities, Yeah.
Why become a chiropractor? Like looking at it, you could make an impact as a nutrition specialist, as a yoga teacher, as a massage therapist. Like, what is different about becoming a chiropractor, and why is it really like kind of on a different level in regards to what you have the ability to do or the impact that you can make in a community?
So I wanted to be a chiropractor. I've always been, the type of individual who didn't really care for any type of medication. Even when I was younger, if I had a headache, I would at that time, I didn't know what was causing it, but I would just kind of tough it out, drink water, what have you. But I became a chiropractor, first of all, because I always wanted to be some type of doctor, and I also thought about the fact that, I can have my own practice and it gives me a lot of more options than certain other fields or what have you. And then just being able to really connect and put my hands on people and create that connection and make a difference and be able to get people out of pain, because, people can be in pain because of nutrition. They're, have inflammation and things of that nature. Massage therapy is also great. But I think as a chiropractor, you have the unique ability to be able to combine all of those things because you can specialize in nutrition. You can also get certain certifications where you do soft tissue therapy. On top of that, the adjustment is so powerful. You know what I mean? So it has all these things where it allows our, nervous system to communicate properly. And so being able to address all components of, the human system versus just focusing on one thing is another reason why I wanted to become, a chiropractor.
What advice would you give to somebody before they go to chiropractic school? Some experiences they should have, or some challenges that you recommend that they go through, that maybe builds like an internal resilience or helps clarify some things internally for them, that's in the experience category, or that's maybe even academic. What are you think some things that would really prepare them for chiropractic school and also to become a chiropractor?
So the first thing I would say is go visit doctors' offices, go shadow doctors, and just reach out to them because a lot of people, are open to it, and experience the way that different practices go. So you may have this idea, in your mind of how, being a chiropractor is, but until you actually go shadow and observe and things of that nature, you're going to find out different things. It's not just about, especially when you're starting off, it's not just about, being a doctor and adjusting. You also have to, especially if you're going to run your own practice, you got to be able to be a business owner and know how to run a business. So if you're not somebody, if you don't think you can do both in the beginning, unless you just, you can hire somebody right off the bat, then that's something you want to also consider. You're going to have to be a business person. As far as school is concerned, I think that it's very important for you to develop good study habits day one, because studying and passing your boards is going to be so important for you to be able to get your license and get out into your community and practice. And a lot of people, when they study, and I did like a little, for the American Black Chiropractic Association, I did like a little speaking engagement for their regional conference on study strategies. And I think it's important because a lot of students, they don't really have good study habits. They kind of review stuff, maybe cram, don't really, get really into good study habits. And as a result, it's reflected because they have difficulty maybe passing exams or definitely difficulty on the board. So developing good study habits. I would also really think about making sure that you have a good support network. depending on what stage you are in life. If you're younger and you don't have any kids, that's great. But you also want to make sure that you tell your friends and family, like, hey, I'm getting ready to go to school. There are going to be some times where, I'm not going to be able to go to certain events like I used to because I have to buckle down and study. And knowing that making that sacrifice is temporary and it's short-term sacrifice for a long-term benefit. And so even though you may not be able to do as much during that time where you're in chiropractic school, really buckling down and focusing is going to benefit you in the long run. Um, I also think when you're in school, making really good connections and friendships and building a network so you guys can support each other, because it's going to get rough, it's going to get tough. But really, like I said, having somebody that you can call, depend through, or somebody that's in school that's going through the same thing as you. When I was in school, it was a little different because when I started, I already had a 9-month-old. And then when I graduated, I was 7 months pregnant with my youngest. When I walked across the stage, I was actually 7 months pregnant. But in school, it was difficult for me to be able to do as much as far as like, going to study groups and doing different things with my classmates because I had a child at the time. So I would go to school, then I would come home, get the baby. And then my husband, he would go to school at night. So we were kind of just, making it work. It was difficult, but again, if you are going through school and you have like a family or, and children and things of that nature, making sure that you do have a support network. So you can have that extra time to study, build relationships and things of that nature. So yeah.
What are some resources that you're developing with the CWC? Like, how are you structuring it? Like, if I'm a student and I'm wanting to explore, like, how do I really engage and stay connected and stay engaged through the CWC in my pre-chiro years?
So right now, the goal is we're building a directory. So we want to build a directory of doctors that are all over the place. So that way, depending on if you're a student and where you're at, we have a directory where if you say, hey, I want a mentor and I'm going to this state, we can connect you. Again, still in the beginning stages. Right now, we are working on building our email list. And so if you look in the bio at CWC, there's a link tree. And from there, we have our email list that you can jump on. We have a YouTube channel that we're actually currently working on putting all the interviews that we're doing from Instagram on there. So say, for example, if you don't always want to be on IG because it can be distracting sometimes, you can jump on YouTube and kind of go through the video. So I'm actually working on that component of putting the videos up there. Eventually, we want to get to the point where, like I said, we create a community and we're meeting up, we're having conference, we're giving each other speaking engagement opportunities. We're sharing our experiences as women and, being mothers and wives and still being a boss and building a business and things of that nature. And so, again, it's in the beginning stages, but that's kind of where we eventually want to go, turn it into something where we can connect on an annual basis, give each other opportunities, get to a point where we're able to create a scholarship fund so we can give back and help other students, pay for their college or pay for their books or things of that nature. So right now, step one is building our directory and building our email list so we can continue to start a foundation and continue to build upon that.
That's dope. That's really big. That's visionary and that's legacy building. I want to just, thank you for the work that you're doing with that project. It's super important. And I think that it's like an essential piece for a profession to acknowledge that, hey, there is a diverse community here, that diverse community needs to be celebrated and honored and really also listened to and be given a platform. Because I think that too often the people that we see that show up in leadership positions, that show up on stage at these conferences or seminars, they put themselves there. They strived for that. But I think that there's been an embedment of like, you kind of have to be interested in talking to the crowd that's there, and you have to be interested in showing up on that lineup with the people that are in that same lineup. And maybe it's been a deterrent in the past, but I think that having an outlet and a platform like that will become more attractive to new people to be given a voice, because I think that everybody has such amazing things to share. They just need to be given that platform or that opportunity.
Yeah, it definitely, because you think about like other people sharing their experiences. Like you think about like sometimes when you go to conferences, if you don't see anybody that looks like you, they may not have any relative experiences. Like sometimes I think about like a lot of people that I see like, oh, I'm a fifth generation chiropractor. Oh, well, that's awesome. You know what I mean? But like a lot of us, we're first generation. Like we're figuring this out on our own. We don't have like, grandparents and parents that were in this field before us, paved the way, schooled us on business and all that other stuff. And so it's now like we're literally the first generation in our families trying to, figure it out or what have you. So us being able to share our experiences, like, because we're really starting from the ground and building it up, you know what I mean? And maybe eventually get to the point where we're building family legacies as well. So, when we're talking to individuals and we're on the stage sharing those types of experiences, it's going to help to motivate us and give us the keys that what do we need to do to figure it out to get where you are or get where we want to be eventually, wherever that may be. So I think that's super important.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, nah, I mean, I didn't grow up with chiropractic in my life. I didn't grow up with anybody like taking me to the chiropractor or talking about health and wellness. I grew up in a more medically oriented family, and I grew up in a very diverse community in New York where, this wasn't a present thing. Like chiropractic didn't really have a presence at all in none of our lives. And to this day, even in my friends' lives, like, yeah, I have to constantly be reminding them that, hey, it's an outlet, or, it's there for you if you want it, if you need more support, if you feel like you don't know what to do or you don't know what doctor you want to go to, you don't want to go to the doctor. Most people don't want to go to the doctor. I often really relate it or create a metaphor with going to get your nails done or going to get your hair done, or going to the barber shop, and it's community vibe. It's like, it's positive. And I think that it does great things that can't really even be put into words. It just gives people a sense of place and gives people a trust in their body, which is very much lacking in our community. So
yeah, one other thing to mention, like what you were just saying, the last few months, I've introduced quite a few Black women to chiropractic, women, period. And like, it's amazing the feeling that you get when you give somebody their first adjustment, and then just the way that they feel, and they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I've been missing this. Like I had a patient, what was it? I think on Saturday, and this was only her second adjustment. And she was like, oh my God, I'm so happy I found this. You know what I mean? And so when I have patients come in, I always educate them on, like you said, give the metaphors, the benefits of continued chiropractic care and wellness care. I kind of I use metaphors like, going to the dentist and getting your teeth clean. I use like examples like car maintenance, getting an oil change and things of that nature. You're not doing it because something's wrong. You're doing it to prevent something from going wrong. And then I always, always, always give my new patients a merit chart, and I explain to them, how the nervous system controls everything. And so when they see that, it is like mind blowing for them. And so I really give them the education and set that foundation. And then on top of that, once I adjust them, then it's kind of like, oh my God, I feel great now. All these other benefits. Okay, I'm coming back to you. And so from day one, day two, I always make sure that I explain that the eventual goal is, even if you're in pain right now, my eventual goal is for you to get on wellness care and come back once a month. And the majority of them do, because I created that education factor. I educated them, because if you don't, then they're not going to see the importance of continued care. They're going to get out of pain and then they're going to leave. And I've also had people who have went to other chiropractors that may not have gotten that information. And I asked them like, oh, you've been to a chiropractor before. Did I bring out my spine? Did they tell you about this? No. Do you know anything about the marriage? No. And I'm like, oh my God. Okay, well, before I do anything, let me explain to you the purpose of chiropractic, the benefits, how it works, And from there, that's where you get people to really understand the true benefits of it, that it's not just about pain, it's about function, it's about overall health, and they will stick with you.
And it's such a missed opportunity to provide that gift for somebody if you don't share the truth with them about chiropractic, and if you don't take the time to really ask them, hey, I know you've been to a chiropractor, but what did you learn there? Or, hey, like, what do you think chiropractic is? And just to meet them where they're at, but also be able to give this opportunity, give this gift of like, what is the truth about health and where does health come? It comes from within. And, that just aligns so beautifully with people who go to church every weekend and people who are engaged in their community, who really care about their community, which most people that are involved in the community don't even know about chiropractic like that. Like our community
Right.
leaders, if they were getting adjusted, they would be sharing that message. And I think that, what you're doing, we can't even understand or comprehend like the power of it, right? We don't know what the ripple effect is. We just know that it's happening. Like we
Right.
know that the women that you take care of, or the men that you take care of, or the kids that you take care of are going to walk through life now having experienced chiropractic in the way that they did, which is not the way they probably heard it was, supposed
Right.
to. So one by one, right?
Yep. One patient at a time. That's why I think I take it one day at a time.
All right. Well, Dr. Lindsay, I want to thank you so much for just shining a light and sharing your truth and your experience. And I hope that we can continue to collaborate as we move forward onto like, real like put some real energy behind this goals that these shared goals that we have, which is to really reach the community, to shift the culture towards health and well-being, and also just trust in their body's ability to do its thing in all times, in all ways. And yeah, I look forward that, a couple years down the line, we'll be able to look back at this time and be like, wow, we were young. This is early.
Right.
We really made that happen that we were talking about. We really made impacts in our community in even bigger ways than we were able to in our offices. So it's dope.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate the opportunity. I know it took a little while to get on track, busy schedules and things of that nature, but I really appreciate giving the opportunity to speak with you and just kind of, share. So I appreciate that. And keep
Oh,
doing what you're doing as well. It's awesome. We need all of us to play our roles and play our part, follow those visions that we have, those ideas that you have, they start as ideas and then they turn into, action, and then it turns into your reality. So if you have a small idea and you're like, oh my God, how am I going to make this happen? One step at a time, one day at a time.
hmm
Just go for it. Put yourself out there.
Yeah, no, that's a fact. It's been a long time coming to get to this moment, and I'm just so
Mhm.
happy that I'm still here to see it happen and still here with the energy, with that passion and excitement that I have, honestly, just to reach the people that grew up around me that kind of just are not being reached by chiropractors, really,
Right.
honestly. If we're just being really real about it, they're not being focused on. So I'm
Yeah.
really focused on that group, which is not being focused on. And I'm privileged to be able to like have the insight and also know like that these people are out there, that they exist, and I know how to relate to the culture. So I'm excited to kind of bring that, just that energy that we don't really see that often in chiropractic, and we don't see like front and center in chiropractic, which is like coming from a culture that's diverse, coming from a place of experiencing a lot of different things, being around people that are living in deep poverty, being around people that are,
Right.
quite frankly, coming from generation after generation of unhealthy, sick, traumatized
Mhm.
family members, and also don't have support, and just knowing what that's like and knowing how much chiropractic can make a difference. So
Definitely.
it's it's good. It's exciting. All right, cool. Well, anything upcoming with the CWC that people should tap into? When can they tune into those lives? Like, are you inviting anybody that's out there to come on? If they are a chiropractic woman of color, like, what are some of the questions that you ask? I know you said you touch on practice styles, but like, what are some of the other conversations that have come out of the organic dialogue that you're having?
All right. So to answer the first part, yeah, if you want to get interviewed, we're interviewing students, recent graduates. Our goal is to have an interview every single Friday. We typically do them on Fridays at 1:30 Central Standard Time.
Mhm.
Um, and so if you are interested in being interviewed, just feel free to reach out, DM us, shoot us an email, or like I said, in our link trees, our contact information. Some of the questions that we ask, again, just a brief introduction, where they're practicing, what style they practice in, um, any tips and things of the nature. But one thing that we always get into is kind of turns into a conversation. And we, get into anything from marketing, from different practice styles, from talking about like the business side of it, like what it is to run a business, So depending on the doctor that we're talking to or the student that we're talking to, it always kind of goes in different directions. And then if they're at their office, we always try to do a tour, and that allows us to share and show what different practices look like. We have women that practice in professional buildings where they're like just 2 rooms. We have people that are in a bigger retail space, just showing all the different options out there, so that, okay, when I start practice, I don't have to get this huge space with huge overhead, because when the higher your overhead is, the more it's going to take, the more patients you're going to have to see, and the longer it's going to take for you to get a profit, versus really starting off with the things that you need, low overhead, and just, really building relationships and getting yourself out there and getting into your community. And so we talk about all different topics. It just kind of, like I said, depends on where the conversation goes. And I think the cool thing about that is we don't really necessarily know where it's going to go, but we always have these awesome conversations because everybody has something to give, no matter if you're just starting in practice, if you're a student, recent graduate, everybody has something, some type of gems that they drop that are beneficial, to us. Because when I do interviews, I learn stuff, you know what I mean? When Dr. Rocky does interviews, she learns stuff. We had a student on there that was in school, and she was actually, this is more of a second career for her. And so we were getting information from her, you know what I mean? So the thing about it is that tuning into the interviews, even if you can't tune into them live, we always save it to our profile. We're putting them on our YouTube channel, so you can check them out whenever your schedule permits or what have you. But they're good to watch because you always get some great information that you can use to, put into your own life or what have you. And everything is not for everybody. So if there is something that doesn't necessarily, resonate with you, then leave that, but take everything else. And so it's kind of just like learning from other people, getting what you can take, what you like, what you want to, implement into your life, and then applying it. Because again, we can get all the knowledge that we want, but if we don't actually apply that knowledge, then it has no benefit. So
most definitely. Hey, Dr. Lindsay, I really appreciate you. Have a wonderful day, and let's reconnect sometime in the near future. That's all great advice. Appreciate you.
all right, thank you so much. I appreciate it.